title of my paper is Dyke Census Blues about the Blue Gum Trees, Lessons from the Drum magazine. This will be the presentation outline. And this is my introduction. I'm struggling with this. Sorry, just a second. Period in South Africa was rather harsh, especially to the aspirants to democracy. The Africans were deprived of human rights. Perhaps that is why I have entitled this paper Blues, meaning the feeling of sadness or depression, something like that with regards to the author, Dyke Census. The professionals, such as the journalists and teachers, were seen as the threat by the government because they felt that they could turn the communities around against the government. Drum magazine, which was started around the 50s, was popular amongst the Africans in South Africa, but the regime viewed its publication negatively. Census, as one of the drum writers, used this platform to present the African experiences. Initially, the drum magazine was not financially successful because of the regime manipulation. The drum image later was transformed to inculcate the urban African culture. On top of that, they introduced or they brought in some board members, such as Dr. Kuma, Twala, Ratebe, Anderson, who were political and cultural activists to make sure that the urban African culture is inculcated in the image, general image of the magazine. Many writers, such as Dyke, Nkosi, Temba, were referred as the drum graduates because they did not attain professional qualification as journalists, but drum was able to help them to master the skills of being journalists. Hence, they were referred as the graduates or the drum graduates. The drum offices were relaxed. Whenever they were there, the offices were relaxed. They were free from discrimination as well. In other words, while they were in the offices, they were free. There was nothing discriminatory against them. That is why the regime hated the drum magazine so much, because of this particular stance against the government policies at the time. I want us to look at this story, which was published in the Drum magazine, the classical story that won the first drum competition in 1953, which is about Moilwa, a farm worker, and Japi, his employer, Moilwa supports his employer, but his two sons died on the farm. The second one killed, the second son was actually killed by Japi's son unintentionally. The first son was buried under the blue gum trees, while the second son was killed under the same trees, also buried there. Moilwa was deeply discouraged by this. He often spent time under the blue gum trees. He was also disliked by the other workers as he was seen as loved by the employer and also a snitch. As time elapsed, the employer Japi took a decision to buy tractors and other technical equipments and fired most of the employees, including Moilwa. I will want us to explore the wise tactics used to comment about the social, economic, and political ills in South Africa at the time. I would also want us to look or to examine the new interest in the journalistic work of Senzo. Senzo's socioeconomic commentary in the 50s in the light of the current situation. And finally, explore the creative use of natural reality, symbolism to express social context. The problem of the study. The government expected the writers to toe the line and speak kindly about it. African writers experienced the same cruelty experienced by all from government policies. To avoid being killed, harassed, arrested, writers used symbolism, satire, and irony. Dyke, for example, talks about the blue gum trees throughout his work. Under the blue gum trees, what is hidden behind it? Why is the blue gum trees central to the story? If it were not for the blue gum trees, the work would probably not have survived the cold hand of regime censorship. The use of the blue gum trees in the story. I'm here going to just take excerpts from the story itself on how the blue gum trees is used in the story. The first one is, "It is good, Bas. When I have been to his grave, the grave which was under the trees, I feel well. It is as if he tells me what to do. You see, he was my eldest son." This is the excerpt from Moilwa. His son had died. So the son is dead. Why does he feel good about visiting the grave? Maybe this is the African versus the Western perspective. The second one, the second excerpt is, Moilwa's son goes to kill birds in the gum trees using a catapult. He is joined by Japi's son, Gert, who ultimately tried to use a gun to kill the birds. Unfortunately, he ended up killing Moilwa's son using the gun. So now the issue here is the catapult versus the gun. The survival versus the destruction. For example, he was killing the birds to survive, to eat, but then the boy used the gun to kill the birds, more or less the same as destruction. The last excerpt, there was no tear. The tears had dried up. Beyond the blue gum trees, in the misty grayness of the moon, before two raised moons of cold earth, an old man spoke softly with tenderness of depth of his heart. Farewell, my sons, he said. Moilo's support of his employer through thick and thin versus employers driving him out of the farm in favor of new technology. In other words, here, Moilo had supported his employer throughout, but now at a certain stage, the employer kicked him out because he wanted to introduce the new technology. So now these are the three important things that I want us to look at, which in a way are depicted by the whole blue gum tree story. Number one, the origins of the trees, the medicinal use of the blue gum trees, and the harmful effect. Under the origins of the trees, the blue gum trees are not originally from South Africa, but they are from outside South Africa. So these trees are not indigenous to Africa, just like Japi, the employer. The second aspect or lesson, it's medicinal. The blue gum trees is used as a remedy for ailment. For example, when he's been to the grave, he feels good. He feels healthier physically and emotionally. So the blue gum trees here serve as a medicine to him. And lastly, the harmful effect of the blue gum trees. The blue gum trees are also unkind to the indigenous plants in Africa. In this particular story, for example, Yapi's son kill Moilo's son, unkind to, just like the blue gum tree, when it's unkind or it has a harmful effect on the other plants, indigenous plants. Secondly, he also kills the environment. When he brings in this technology, it comes in such a way that it has a negative effect on the people who are living harmoniously in the place. So now, to conclude, okay, sorry. Dyke's work is crucial because it was and still points at the fundamental causes of misunderstanding and conflicts in the South African context. When pretenses such that such challenges do not exist is removed, relevant skills to deal with ensuing challenges of multiculturalism and multilingualism is adequately developed. To actualize the dream of the new South Africa requires that all the past, the present, and future dimensions of the South African communities are fully explored, appreciated, and duly recognized. To conclude on the lessons for South Africa and the world, number one, peace can only be achieved when rights of land to inhabitants are respected. I think when we look at this and look at what is happening generally, it gives us something to think about. Secondly, the interconnection between man and nature leads to harmonious coexistence. And finally, technology used unwisely is a serious threat to humanity. And these are some of the references that I've used. And thank you very much.